What is realism? Well, it really depends on how you look at it. Some consider it a genre of art where pictures are depicted as real-life images that people can almost see as a photograph. Realism is the belief that the world can be explained through scientific reasoning, for example, scientific method. Realism is also about asking questions, not just facts, but how those facts were discovered in the first place. Contemporary philosophical realism is a belief in a reality that is completely independent of our conceptual schemes or linguistic practices or beliefs. Philosophers who profess realism also typically believe that truth consists in a belief's correspondence to reality. Some famous realist philosophers are John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Aristotle, René Descartes, and an educator, Thomas Aquinas. In literature, there was Mark Twain, another author, Hamlin Garland, and also Henry James. Realism can be divided into three different categories, the first being neorealism. This is a philosophy that gained slightly in popularity in the early 20th century. It was made famous by a group of 6 US-based scholars. The key component of this division of realism is a rejection of the epistemological dualism of Locke and the previous forms of realism. They believe that when one is conscious of or knows an object, it is an error to say that there are two distinct facts, knowledge of the object in the mind and an extramental object in itself. Essentially, they rebuke the idealist principle that the knowledge produces changes in the object known, and to insist that the knowing experience is a simple relation of knower and object, in which the object is directly presented to consciousness. Critical realism is the belief that objects are not directly presented to the consciousness, but rather represented. Their primary disagreement with presentation as opposed to representation lies in the concept of perception. Contemporary realism is when realists tend to believe that whatever we believe now is only an approximation of reality, and that every new observation brings us closer to understanding reality. In its Kantian sense, realism is contrasted with idealism. In a contemporary sense, realism is contrasted with anti-realism, primarily in the philosophy of science. So what would realism look like in a classroom? Well, for starters, it would involve much research and experimentation. You would usually see this in a science lab. It might be in a class where the scientific method is used to test hypotheses and gain concrete scientific understanding of a subject. Another big factor in realism is questions and inquiry. In the classroom, it's not just about facts, but how you got to those facts. Precision and order are also important for realism, such as using bells to designate time periods or having daily lesson plans. In the classroom, the role of the teacher is to keep order and present material systematically. It's also important to have the students move around or raise their hands for a type of physical activity. Although this can be used to help gain scientific understanding, it may not be applicable for all subject areas, as it leans heavily towards the subject of science. It can be a very valuable method to gain knowledge and understanding, but, like any philosophy, it won't work for all students all of the time.